Hi, and welcome to week 9. This week we're going to change courses here and we're going to look at character modeling. Now, that being said, characters are very difficult to create, especially humans and realistic humans. So we're going to take a little bit of a simplified version, but you're going to get the whole pipeline of it. So, character modeling. I have a website that goes over a character model and the step-by-steps. This is more detailed than I would expect for what you're doing in class, but I want you to just be aware of the different phases, be aware of getting specific details. This goes over, step by step, knuckles and how you would make a hand. These are great resources to look at. What makes a good character? So 5 tips on how to make incredible character modeling. Have a concept. Do your research. Keep it simple. When it comes to modeling, we always add details, but we need to start with keeping it simple. A lot of you either maybe went a little too high poly right away, or you never really got the detail that you were wanting. So this is a chance to find that happy medium. Start low poly. This is going to be boxy looking, you're not going to have the details, but you're trying to get the main forms. Then we'll add all of the details. Make a nice flow. Edge flow in your character, looking forward, know where you're going to need room for details, check your concept, name your stuff, keep it in square polygons. Now, these are some articles that talk about strong character design because you're going to have to draw your characters first. Just pop these open real quick. Basic principles for character design. So character and story, are best friends, right? And our characters need to have purpose in the story, and they need to have reasons for why they function or how they function. I wouldn't create this monster character that's supposed to hold a humongous sword and give him tiny, tiny arms where he wouldn't be able to hold the sword, right? If you've got a really brainy character, a lot of times they make the head larger. So just think about these things when you're thinking about character design. Quick tips on how to design a character like a pro. They talk about different techniques and examples throughout time, and then some character design tips. So take a look at all of these articles, and then we're going to draw your character. Due Wednesday is a front and side view of your character. We'll be using these to import into Maya and create your character. Make sure they are simplified. If you want to have a third sketch that shows me all of the details you would love to add, go for it, but these should be a simplified, cartoonish character. You must make sure that your drawings line up. Use rulers in the software or on paper. I cannot specify enough. Each piece should line up. So it's not only that the head lines up, the lips, the nose, the eyebrows, everything must line up front and side view. We are going to be creating this character in what's called a T pose. So A is where the arms kind of come down like this. T is when they are straight across. You'll notice that if you look up model sheets, there's going to be some variance. A and T poses both work, but I want us to draw in a T pose. You'll notice that a lot of times people just do the circle for the arm because we don't really need it since it's coming straight towards us. But you do want to model and draw in a T pose. Now, the purpose for a T or an A is because when you're modeling, when you're rigging, which is again giving it a bone structure, and when you're animating, it's very difficult to start with your arms straight down. The vertices in the arms become close to the vertices in your body, and so when we're telling it what to move with each joint, the model gets confused. It's also a lot easier to model our arms out, our legs kind of apart, because then we can rotate the arms down if need be, but a lot of times we don't have enough information to rotate them up. Okay? And then these, just kind of a start, basic, simple, intermediate, advanced, right? So we're just going to start here, and then we'll make our way up, okay? Cool. So then, by Sunday, we are going to create your low poly character. Import those front and side drawings that I will try to give you feedback as soon as possible into Maya and create a low poly version of your character. I don't want to see facial details yet. I don't want to see any particular details. But think about getting the main forms and keeping your whole model low poly. Your character should be created from one shape. If you feel like you need to use further primitives, please send me an email. I generally start with creating the whole body, and then you can extrude out to get clothing. So I'll tell you what I mean in a second with that, and then that is the end of the week. So I just brought in one of these examples that's copyright free. Rulers. So Command R to bring them up, and then you can just drag down. And you want to see, you know, the top of the shoulder armor. Making sure it lines up. Now this one looks like it's a little off. Of course my computer's taking a second. Looking at the bottom of this clothing piece. Now that one's pretty straight on. You do need to pay attention to curves, because if something curves and is lower in the front, then that might be the case, but let's see, the tip of the nose looks pretty good. Bottom of the eyes looks pretty good, but you're gonna use tons and tons of rulers. So what I recommend is drawing the front pose, getting it looking however you want, then drawing your rulers, and then you can kind of draw your side pose to match. Okay, now again, these are cartoony. They do not have to be humanoid. It can be animal-based, it can be just alien, anything that you want it to be, okay? Think about pushing exaggeration. I don't want, you know, human-like proportions. So if you do want to do a human, just make sure it's cartoony. So once you brought your image planes in, and just as a reminder, go into your front view, view, image plane, import image. I realize that you can't see that all the way. View, that doesn't fix it. Well, you know. And you'll get your front and side view in. You can go into your channel box to create a layer for them. But then for most of these, I would start with a cube. Even if you're doing a teddy bear looking character that has a very round belly, start with a cube. I'll think about giving it a number of subdivisions that keeps this line down the middle. I'm going to start really basic. I'm going to just start by putting this down here so that I can extrude legs. So if I select both of these faces and I do an extrude, if keep faces together is on, what will happen is, just like it sounds, these faces are merged together. If I do an extrude and I turn this off and then I bring them down, these are now separate. So you can see how I can start to build legs. Now that's a pretty intense angle for coming off of the crotch, but you get the point. I would bring, you know, these down to the knees, wherever that may be on your character, and then you could do an extrude. Wherever your shoes may be, I'm going to hit hotkey G for great to extrude again. My feet, you can grab these front faces, hotkey G for an extrude, and I can bring them forward. Now again, we're just getting the base forms here. Now I haven't paid attention to, you know, very much of this yet. This is some very robotic, thick ankles, so things that we need to work on, right? We can think about what you want. You don't want to necessarily bend the knees backwards, but again, you're going to be using your drawings to model this from. I'm just showing you how low poly I can get this character to be. Now, if I'm doing the body, I actually want these to be together, right? So make sure this is on, because when I'm building up, I don't want these to be separate because I'm going to have extra vertices, extra faces on the inside that I don't need. Can extrude. Etc. Now, let's say I'm making this body here, which I am. And let's say I've made this arm fantastic, but shoot, I wasn't doing this arm at the same time. This one looks great. What can I do? Well, we have mirror capabilities, and that's why it's important that we have this strong line down the middle, right? So what I can do is I'll just look in a front view to keep things simple, but I'll go into face mode and select the faces that I want to keep, right? I really like how I've done this. I can go into Edit Mesh, Symmetrize. Now it says select a mesh edge for symmetry. So this is saying, what edge do you want me to mirror this over? So I'll double click on this middle edge, and you can see it took this and mirrored it over here. Okay, let me show you another example of using that so it makes more sense. Insert some subdivisions. All right, I have created this totally cool shape, and I want to mirror this on the other side. Okay, well, shoot, I can mirror it right against this line, or I can make a line to be the exact center. So what I will do is I'll insert edge loop, and I'll put it right in the center. This is to give me a line of symmetry. Then I'll go in, face mode, and select everything that I want to mirror. I'm clicking and dragging so that I have that whole side selected. And then Edit Mesh, Symmetrize, says select an edge for symmetry, and I will double click on that middle edge, and you can see now it is symmetrical to that other side. You can mirror from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, left to the right, right to the left, whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be the whole shape. That's why you select it first, so you're selecting the section that you want. So maybe in mine here, I only like this top part. So what I can do is I can select those faces, and I can still pick that middle line, and it duplicates or puts symmetry on only that part. Okay, so this is really, really, really helpful when you're modeling a character. I still would recommend that you model the character as a whole and then practice using some symmetry for your things. It doesn't hurt to model things, so modeling 2 simplified feet and then seeing if there's one that you like better. That also being said, characters are not always perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so I might do this, and then I might go in and just grab some of these vertices and edit them a little bit. okay? We're not all perfect characters. Maybe one arm is higher than the other. Maybe one's a little bit longer than another. Maybe the shirt is hanging over differently on one side. Oh, I had talked earlier. Oops. Sorry about that. About clothing. So for your low poly model, I wouldn't worry about it. What I tend to do, let's say this is my perfect character. If I wanted something to look like clothing, maybe he's wearing a shirt. So I'm going to insert an edge loop wherever I want the shirt to be. And then I'm going to have to obviously go in and move my vertices around. You know, you're going to have to edit it a bit. But the point being, and maybe these are some weird overalls or something, but then I can just go into face mode and grab those faces that I want to be a shirt. Something like that. And then I can go Edit Mesh, Extrude, and I'm just going to scale. I'm going to scale it upward. Now, you may find that in some directions it needs more or less, and that's when you go in and adjust vertices. But now you can see I've given my weird Gumby big-armed fish character, maybe he's half shark, clothing, very simply, right? And then of course we can always go in and insert edge loops. And then you can edit those vertices or, you know, whatever you want to work with and give it some depth, some molding. Now, this kind of molding and texture detail isn't stuff that we're going to see until your high poly model, and that's when we can actually use those sculpting tools that we talked about earlier, where you're pushing and pulling vertices. So for this, you'll notice that a lot of times I look at it in 3 and then go back to 1. You're going to want to always model in 1 so you can see where your edges, where your vertices are going, but I like to then check in 3 just to see what my smooth version will be. I mean, if you're doing a robot, you can keep it nice and boxy, but I imagine most of us are going to have smooth edges on our characters. Okay, so base shapes. If I was then going to do the head, I could do an extrude, scale downward, do an extrude for the neck, extrude, and I'm just hitting hotkey G, and then my move tool. Maybe my character has a really cool bun on top of her head. My shark bun character. Maybe it'll be one of those airplane hats. I don't know. But you can see I've got details that's making this a character while keeping it very low poly. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for. Again, if you want to do hands, we can do a lot of extrude here. And again, you'll have nice drawings to work with. But we can get like kind of the fan for fingers. And we can pull out a thumb. Okay, so keeping this simple. Okay, start simply, start neatly. It's all going to come from your drawings, but then we'll make a really nice character. Okay, So let me know if you have any questions.